What up, nation? Welcome to the first edition of the Wise Take NFL Showdown slate breakdown. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And of course, I represent the Wise Take Nation. You can find the Wise Take Nation on Twitter at Wise_Take. Or you can just go to the home of the Wise Take Nation, which is wisetake.com. I think I fucked that up. The Twitter is at Wise_Take. Not sure if I said that correctly. You can see it on the screen. I may have messed that up. Don't worry about it. Moving right along. Tomorrow we'll be doing an NFL First Look video for Week 4. But today we still got a little bit of Week 3 left. The last bit of Week 3. Gonna see how all you guys like this video. Trying something different. If you guys like it, we'll try to continue to do it when we can. If you guys don't like it, then we'll just fucking go to hell then. But the showdown slates have really grown on me recently. I think this season particularly, I've messed around with it last year. I've done a few things, and I think there is certainly potential. My initial reaction was like most people who first heard of a one-game slate, it was kind of like, what the fuck is this? And on FanDuel, I'm not crazy about it. I think the MVP thing on DraftKings is pretty cool with the salaries. I also like the DraftKings scoring system better generally for football, so, I guess that makes sense. But anyway... we're going to go right into this Week 4 Monday Night Football Showdown deal. The contest you guys see right now, this is the main donkey, right? $250K to first, $10 entry, 147,000 man field. We've got the Bears visiting Washington. Not the most exciting game to do a first showdown video on, but just wanted to give you guys some ideas of how I typically approach these. Number one, when I do NFL main slates, the regular contest, what I'll typically do is like 3 to 5 main teams where I'll put them in like contests that are a little more higher dollar, smaller field if I can, the Millie Maker, things like that, and then I'll throw in like 25 like small teams. They'll be in like the donkeys, whatever that is for you. If you can afford to make that the Millie Maker, that's great. That's what a lot of pros do. If you can't, you can throw it in the $1 or whatever, but I like to have a lot of teams, and that's just the way DFS is heading. I think that's how most DFS players are successful. I know that to be the case, and it's the same concept on a one-game slate. The benefit of a one-game slate is you can cover multiple different routes. The downside, of course, is that everybody else can too, and so you're going to see a lot of lineups that are the same, but with NFL, what makes the showdown slate so great is the prize pools. There's still massive contests, massive prize pools. NFL is just super popular. So with this, maybe we see this trend pick up more in the NBA as well. But a baseball showdown slate, the contests almost aren't even worth doing. With the NFL ones, they're definitely worth getting into. And plus, who doesn't love fucking football, right? Like you got like the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, Monday night games that are all isolated, and you need some type of way to get down. They're not on the main slates, right? So why not play some showdown action? But anyway, the first thing I typically do is try to assess this game, right? I'm going to have, like, say, 20 teams. So I'm going to have different builds, but you kind of want to decide, like, who you're bigger on, who your highest exposed players are, especially your hotspot players. It's going to determine on what game flow you think is the most likely in combination with pricing. Like, game flow, pricing, it's all kind of come together. Your knowledge of football, your knowledge of DFS, kind of coming together. That's how I look at it, and it's pretty easy to build 20 teams even with a one-game slate. So first off, looking at the hotspot player, I don't hate putting quarterbacks in it, but I strongly prefer to put receivers and running backs. They're just typically players with higher ceilings, a lot of opportunities, especially in a one-game slate. In this particular slate, I don't mind Mitch Trubisky or even Keenum because there's not a ton of like superstar type caliber players, at least in my opinion. And those two guys, are going to get a lot of the opportunity. We have a 42 game total, which is really low. We've got the Bears that are road favorites against a terrible defense. Bears got a really good defense, playing a decent offense. They've actually been decent. Washington has a terrible defense, but the Bears' offense has looked awful. So the first thing you have to kind of decide in your own head, do you think this is going to be a higher scoring game or whatever the case may be? So we'll try a couple different builds here just to kind of show you what my mindset is. Say I want a team where I'm thinking the Bears are going to play from ahead, and we're going to see a trailing game script from Washington. I think that putting someone like David Montgomery, understanding the role of David Montgomery, would make sense. This is the guy that I think they plan on giving the carries to. You can see in week 1 only had 6 attempts. But in week 2 against Denver, in a game that they were actually winning most of the game, he got 18 carries. Now, it wasn't great, 3.4. That was in Denver in the altitude. Never really like when that happens, when players go into Denver. That altitude is a bitch. It's like the opposite effect that we have in baseball, where we love offenses and cores. In football, it can really fuck offenses up going out there and playing at altitude. But hypothetically, say we're putting David Montgomery, and I'm not saying I love this guy necessarily in the hot spot, but if you are doing that, Chicago is going to like have the lead as the road favorite and kind of try to kill the clock because their offense has been struggling. He does kind of make sense in that build. I think normally you won't see a defense this expensive, but I think the Bears are a decent correlation with that. And if you're thinking it's going to be a lower scoring game, I do think that you can take a shot on the kicker for the Bears as well. Now, I do think it's imperative. Most nights you're going to want kickers, you're going to want defenses, because those are the most solid value plays that you're going to get. This week, the Bears are 6-2. That's really fucking expensive, even for a showdown slate for a defense. But they are a very good defense, and Washington is supposed to be a bad team. And again, if you look at their offensive weapons, they just don't have a ton of like super strong skill players. Although I do think that McLaughlin kid is pretty good. He's a rookie. We haven't seen a ton of him yet. So as far as perception goes, a lot of the time when I talk, it's in mode of perception, unless I specify. But as you can see here, we're getting some good Bears exposure. We got Montgomery, we got the Bears, we got Pinheiro. If we have Montgomery, a guy that's not really a big pass catcher, then maybe we don't necessarily need Trubisky, but maybe we can go with a pass catcher like Robinson, a high target player, 13 targets week 1, 7 targets week 2. And I don't think that like having exposure to Trubisky, you're going to need him to throw for a ton. For a guy like Allen Robinson, you need like 1 or 2 touchdowns, right? 2 would be ideal, but even 1, you can make that work with the touches on the PPR and the artists that he could potentially pick up. So we're pretty heavy on the Bears here. You do have to play at least one Washington guy, so we can start looking into that. One option is to play Case Keenum and try to see if you can match him up with a pass thrower. He's 10-2. Again, Bears defense has been pretty good, but you can see Case Keenum is throwing a ton. Just a lot of volume, a whole lot of throwing. Could be a bad thing for a situation like this. I don't know. But we'll go with him for an example, because the game script we're going on is that the Bears are kind of winning this battle. They're, number 1 receiver and their number 1 rushing back, not running back, because we know Tyreek Cohen and some of these other guys is kind of split. Their number 1 rushing back with the Bears defense and even the Bears kicker. We're looking for low scoring, right? This is what we're looking for. Playing Case Keenum and just banking off of the volume is an option. You can see it's not necessarily pretty. 221, passing yards against Philly. Sure, they're a pass funnel type defense. Chicago is just a good defense. But hypothetically, we have money to spend in this example, so we'll go with it. Now, another thing, man, I'm not worried about leaving salary on the table. There are some games that are shootouts, and you're going to want to use the salary wisely. You'll see people do things that they'll try to get slick and put a value player in the in the hot spot. Whatever, that's fine. But don't be afraid to leave salary on the table. That's something that, like, if you leave salary on the table, you're already making yourself a little different, because there's a lot of people out there who just don't like to leave the salary on the table. They'll move things around. Even though this may be the build they're looking for, they'll find reasons to kind of move things around so that they can use as much of their salary as possible. So I got Keenum in here for this example. Now, one player, in terms of the pricing aspect, one player that I think is underpriced on the Washington side is probably Trey Quinn. You can see he got 6 targets in week 1, 7 targets in week 2, yet he's only 3,800. This isn't like a huge air yards play. You can see even with 4 receptions in both games, still around the 30s. But if this team is trailing and the Bears defense is really good, I can see them kind of just looking for those short passes, whether it's Trey Quinn, whether it's Vernon Davis, the tight end, whether it's Thompson. If they're trailing, that's another player that I think fits the trailing game script. But hypothetically, I think when you see the price, like, it's just off. You see the prices of a lot of these guys. Thompson's 7-4. You understand because of the role he's played in that offense, and it's a 1-game slate. You wouldn't see him 7-4 on a main slate, but on a 1-game slate, as far as the ranking goes of who are the top players, he's definitely going to rise in that situation. Vernon Davis, same thing, 7-8. And then, of course, their number 1 receiver, who's been super impressive and I think is fine. And if you can find if you want to just play him over Keenum and just get exposure that way, that's fine too. You can see the prices make sense. Then you got Trey Quinn, who's playing a decent amount of snaps. And, again, has gotten 6 and 7 targets, is playing out of the slot, I believe. Just makes sense. So I think you could go with him. For this particular example, Paul Richardson, also not a bad idea. who got 7 targets in week 1. But Trey Quinn seems the most underpriced. Now, normally, I would think a player like Trey Quinn would be pretty popular. However, as you can see, there's just not a ton of money that we have to spend. I mean, even if you wanted to get off the Bears D, you can simply, like, this is like, if you think the game's going to be a little bit higher scoring, maybe the Bears are still going to be leading, but you think the game will be higher scoring, simply click off the Bears D, and now you can look. Now I'm spending all the salary. And that's an example of what people would do if they were uncomfortable leaving money on the table. So if you're comfortable leaving money on the table, you want to play the Bears D because they're just a good play today. You can do that, and in this build, you would have ended up leaving money on the table. However, for this particular example, if you didn't want to leave the money on the table, or even forget about the money on the table, if you just thought this was going to be a higher scoring game, like the public is on the under, if you, for whatever reason, you thought this game is going to be competitive, Washington's offense has been fighting, and you think they'll be able to do the same thing against the Bears at home, then this build will work fine. You got Keenum, you got Quinn, you got McLaurin. If a team is trailing, they're going to be throwing. Also, the Bears defense is tough to run on. And then on the Bears side, you've got, like, you know, Allen Robinson to go catch as the number 1 receiver and make those plays. You got David Montgomery. If they're leading, hopefully he's pounding it in the end zone and he's getting a ton of touches on the ground. And then, you know, again, you've got the kicker for Chicago, who's questionable. Okay, this is an example. It's more about strategy, right? Pinheiro, 3,400, whatever. Just to get field goals. Field goals are important, man. Think about it. Think about how many points these guys get. You'll see a receiver end the game 13 points. We saw the other night, I think it was last night, Sunday Night Football. Goff was in a lot of winning lineups, and he only put up like a 17-18. That's not, look at that, 15 in his last game against Denver. He's questionable. Keep that in mind if you're playing today. But just saying. So kickers, I do think, are important. Even if you didn't want to go this route, if you wanted to go, I like the kicker with the, you know, the offense that's controlling, because if they're controlling the clock, say it's the fourth quarter and they're driving, they're running the ball, they're probably not going to throw it. So there could be a point where they finally get stopped around the 25, 35 yard line, and they end up kicking, and you could benefit from that. So that's kind of where I am with that. Dropping sevens, doing deuces, you know how we do here. So that's one example. Another example, if you think it's going to be a little bit of a high-scoring game, you could put Trubisky in that hot spot or go with Allen Robinson. I mentioned I prefer to have receivers and running backs in this particular position. Trubisky last year ran a little bit more. He's not doing that a ton. Granted, it's not like he's been in blowouts. Both games that they've played this year have been very close. One a win, one a loss. If he ran more, if we get a rushing quarterback like a Daniel Jones or, you know, Mahomes, any of those guys Lamar Jackson, any of the guys that may run, no problem hot spotted him right away. Probably highest exposed. But in this example, if I'm playing Robinson, I'll go ahead and throw in Trubisky. Hope he has a good game. Now, if we think it's going to be more of a shootout, maybe we don't want Montgomery, right? Because that doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't seem to fit as well for a blowout. I think Tyreek Cohen, who is going to catch more passes, which is important on a PPR site, would make sense. We wouldn't want to play the Bears. We could play the Bears defense. Don't think you can't. The Bears defense could be a part of this high-scoring system, right? If the Washington is scoring a lot, which I don't think they're going to. Either way, I don't see them running the ball with Adrian Peterson against the Bears, even at home. So you got to think that they're going to throw a ton. Anytime a team's going to throw a lot, that defense is attractive. You saw even against the Jets. Look at Week 3, this main slate that just passed. The Jets lost 30-14. The Jets defense let up 30 points to the Patriots offense. And they still put up like 14 DraftKings points, maybe 17. I forgot what it was, but they had a special teams touchdown and a pick six when Brady got taken out, what they thought was going to be garbage time. They put him right back in. But my point is that, you know, just because on a full game slate, I wouldn't have, on a main slate, there's no reason to take players against your defense. There's just it's so big. There's like 12 game slates. Why do you have to do that? But on a one game slate, these kind of things become a little more, you know, the lines are a little more blurred, if you will. So in this example, we got Allen Robinson in the hot spot. Trubisky in there. He's going to be throwing it to him. Again, this could be the start of a trailing game script for Chicago, but it could just be more of like, you know, let's take the best players on the field for the Bears because they're the favorite. The guys with maybe the most that we think have the most actual upside. So we have Robinson, Trubisky, Cohen. See, let's say it's just going to be a throw-heavy day, right? I still like Trey Quinn at 3,800. I think he provides a lot of value. From there, we can go ahead and throw in. I mean, we probably could if we wanted to. We could still go with that Bears defense. Where are they? Oh, I'm an idiot. That's where they went. Ah, there you are. 8,100 leaves us enough for like Vernon Davis, which I don't think is a bad play at all. Chicago, one of the places they've struggled this year has been against the tight end. Not even struggled, but that's just been the one place where teams are finding ways to score fantasy points. But, Vernon Davis would fit that game script. I think you could say the same thing about, what's his name? Chris Thompson, a running back who does get a lot of targets. Typically, you can see only 3 rushes. He's two rushing attempts, 3 rushes. It's not his game. 10 targets, 8 targets. So volume is there. It's a PPR site. Look at the points he's put up, 14-10. Not pretty, but like not terrible on a showdown slate, especially that you think may be low scoring. And I don't even have the kicker in this particular build. Probably could reach the kicker if we come down, right? Yeah, if we come down to the Redskins kicker here, Robinson, Trubisky, Cohen, we could get the Redskins kicker, McLaurin, the number 1 receiver. But McLaurin, to me, would be more of a competitive game script. If the team is trailing bad enough, I can see them just peppering Thompson, peppering Vernon Davis. So again, just another example. Now, say like if you really believe the Bears, now part of it is analysis. If you want to just rely on the numbers, be heavier on the favorite. If it's a higher game total, be heavier on the skill players. If it's a lower game total, consider the defenses more. Either way, you should have exposure to kickers. Either way. And I think defenses too. In this particular example, I do like the Bears defense tonight, but I'll admit they're expensive. Let's take a look at a build where the Bears maybe be in the hot spot. 9,300 for a defense. How about that? If this was the case, then you might as well. If you're playing the Bears in the hot spot, then you might as well just assume that this game is barely scoring. We'll go Bears D. We'll go Montgomery. I think that we can still make sense for a pass catcher from each side. Say if you think Robinson is just they're just gonna have a problem getting in the end zone on both sides. There's still ways you can go. I still like that Trey Quinn at 3,800. I think it's just too cheap. But as you can see, the build gets a little different. So now you can see the Bears defense in the hot spot. We're assuming the Chicago's kind of dominating the game. Montgomery, Allen Robinson. Maybe they're not scoring a ton of touchdowns. And to be honest, like even this build, this doesn't even make full sense. If I'm playing the Bears defense in the hot spot, I'm probably playing kickers here. Whether it be the Bears or even both. And just going for that super low scoring affair. Right? You could definitely do that. Trubisky, Keenum, whichever one you think. I don't think it matters a ton in this particular example. But, anyway. So, as far as who I actually like today, I do think the Bears play well. Again, I'll give out like a little core, I guess. I do like Trey Quinn as a value core, and again, I just don't think people will play the kickers and all that. They're just not going to play him. He's cheap. He's getting the targets. I think one of the places you may want to attack Chicago is in the slot. So I prefer on the Washington side. I'm okay with the number 1 receiver, McLaurin, but I strongly prefer Vernon Davis, Chris Thompson, Trey Quinn from the Washington side. So Trey Quinn, Vernon Davis, Thompson, because I think that if the Bears defense plays well, which I expect them to, then Case Keenum is going to have to pepper these guys that are shorter, closest to him, the tight end, the slot receiver, and the running backs, because Chicago is either putting pressure on them or they are just playing well. And I think in this particular example, if you wanted to go ahead and throw in the Bears D, whether it be in the hot spot or not, you certainly can. You've got the money for it. Say Montgomery there, say Trubisky here. I guess that wouldn't make sense. Allen Robinson would make more sense in this particular example if we were going to do that, I think. But on a PPR side, I just feel way more comfortable with Robinson anyway. But there you go. Robinson in the hot spot, Montgomery. Just an example. This would be like a lower scoring game. We don't have any kickers in here, so I may want to change that and leave money on the table. I do want to play the kickers. We have to see what the status is on the Bears kicker tonight. He's questionable. And the Washington, like the Bears kicker is more appealing because the Washington defense is terrible. We got a terrible defense in Washington playing an offense that's looked bad. Granted, the Packers defense has looked better, and Denver's defense, while they've been like somewhat fraudulent so far this season, they were playing in Denver. They're typically going to play better in Denver with the altitude. But the Washington offense has been decent, but they're going to have a tough matchup with the Bears defense. Meanwhile, the Bears defense has struggled, but the Washington defense is awful. So I like the Bears in general. I'll probably be heavier on some of those skill players like Robinson, Trubisky, and the running back. And for Washington, I'm looking at the Trey Quinns and the Vernon Davises, the Chris Thompsons. I'm looking for that trailing game script, right? Drop sevens, doing deuces. Kickers, defenses, all that goodness. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like on that video. It goes a long way. Really appreciate it. And, don't forget to check us out at wisetake.com for more fire DFS content. We do a lot of different sports. We got NFL. We still got MLB grinding away. We will be. NBA's coming up. We got our season passes up for NBA. Super popular sport. We've done really well within years past. NFL, NBA has been awesome for us. The MLB season was great too, man. But it's all good stuff. You play daily fantasy sports. You're looking for how to learn how to become a better DFS player. You want to be good at this. You want to find out how to play. You want to have a clue. Right? Like, listen, it's not about the picks, right? Anybody can give you picks, whatever the case is. Everybody can make an opinion. We want to teach you how to play, what to look for, and just give us that opportunity. So come check us out, wisetake.com. You know the drill. For myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.